Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Trellis and Trails Homestead. I'm Jacqueline. We have a big day ahead of us today. I have a bunch of peaches here in this box, some water boiling, my stock pot here. We are gonna make 3 peach recipes to can. I have my digital electric pressure canner out. I haven't used it in a bit, so I'm just gonna kind of wipe it down, make sure it's all good to go for today. I have a couple of recipes, new recipes that I want to try. The first one I want to do today is a summer corn and peach salsa, and I'm gonna double that batch, so we'll see how long it takes to get through that one. The other one that I wanted to do is a fiery peach salsa, and then after I do the 2 of these, I'll probably use the rest of the peaches to just can in like a syrup just for canned peaches. That's what I did last year with my peaches. I just did like regular jarred peaches. I didn't do these fancy salsa recipes. So I'm really excited to try these 2 new recipes. They are coming out of the Ball Canning book. This is the book that I use for almost all of my canning recipes. Sometimes I'll find recipes on the Ball Canning website or in another book or online somewhere. I have another book that I use too, but this is primarily the one that I use. So I'll link this in the description below. You guys can go check it out if you would like to purchase this. I just got it off of Amazon and I've recommended it to several other people who have used it too and have really enjoyed it. So first things first, we're gonna get to the summer corn and peach salsa. I'm gonna get all my ingredients kind of out and ready so that I have them handy just to make things easier. I have some water boiling because I want to just drop the peaches into some boiling water to help peel them easier. I remember the worst part about canning peaches last year for me was peeling them, but I didn't drop them in boiling water, kind of like tomatoes. If you have like frozen tomatoes, you can just toss them in boiling water and the peels come off super easily. That's what we're gonna do with the peaches. So I have a full case here, minus a few because I did dehydrate 6 of them. But otherwise a full case of Palisade peaches from Palisade, Colorado. And I don't know how many are left. It looks like quite a bit. I think we'll have plenty for the recipes that I need. And then to just can the rest, I think will be a great idea. So as you see, they need to be washed first. So I'm just gonna wash these before I toss them in the boiling water. This is so much better than trying to peel them with like a vegetable peeler. Most definitely stick your peaches in boiling water and then cold water, and the peels just slip right off. That was so much easier than what I tried to do last year. I remember this being very, very time consuming, and like I said, I think it was because of the peeling process. So I'm so glad that this is happening a lot faster and a lot easier this time. Okay, I have a lot of ingredients here. My peppers, my garlic, I just need to chop these up. And then our peaches that we just peeled. I'm gonna just start with the peaches real quick. I need about 3.5 cups of chopped peaches for one recipe for the summer corn and peach salsa. I have 8 peaches here because I'm planning to double the recipe. So I'll need 3.5, so about 7 cups total of chopped peaches. We'll see if this will be enough. So it says peeled, pitted, and finely chopped for our peaches. And it kind of just pulls right off the peel too because they were boiled for a minute, so they're pretty soft now. See, it kind of just pulled right off of the pit there. I don't really have a good food processor. I have the Ninja blenders, but they don't really chop, they kind of just blend things. So I'm just gonna do a rough fine chop. I'd rather them be in little chopped pieces than kind of blended into more of a smooth salsa. I'd rather it be more of a chunky salsa. I think that's the intention with this one anyways. So yeah, we're just gonna do a rough sort of fine chop here. And I think that'll work out perfect. I just want the peach pieces to be a little bit larger than what my Ninja would do. I have like a big measuring cup here that I am going to toss it in and see how much we get. So that's about 1.5 cups. We might be good with the 8 peaches. It's hard because they're all various sizes, so it says to use like medium peaches, and some of them are medium size, some of them are a little bit larger. But then I found a few that were kind of on the small side. If you guys happen to hear a lot of commotion in the background today, my cats are out, my kitten. If you didn't meet him, go see my last video, check that out, where I introduced him. He's only 12 weeks old, so he's wild and rambunctious, and this is normally his like morning nap time. So he's kind of running around with the other cat. She's getting really annoyed with him. So hopefully he'll just settle down downstairs and just take a nap on his own. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but we'll see. So those 8 peaches ended up being 4 cups. I'm gonna go ahead and just toss this in my big stock pot that I'm gonna be using to boil this down. And go ahead and put probably 4, I need 6 cups total, so I'll probably do 4 or 5 more peaches, put those in the boiling water and then in the cold water so that I can peel them like you guys just saw, and then we should have enough. In the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and dice up our red pepper and our garlic. Okay, I've got all the chopped things in the pot. So now we're gonna add the other ingredients. I am gonna add some frozen corn to the pot as well as some thyme, salt, maple syrup, chipotle peppers, lime juice. The only thing I'm substituting in this recipe is malt vinegar. I don't have malt vinegar, so I'm gonna use apple cider vinegar, and it should be just fine with that. It's like a smoky salsa, so I think that's why it calls for malt vinegar and chipotle peppers, just to give it like a smoky flavor. But I think with the chipotle peppers, it'll do that just fine. And the apple cider vinegar would be a good substitution. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the rest of the ingredients to the pot, and then we'll bring this to a boil and cook it for about 5 minutes. I have the jar chipotle peppers. Just a tip, if your grocery store has the canned chipotle peppers or the jars, get the jars, because you can just stick these in the fridge, because even with the small cans, you're not usually using a whole can of chipotle peppers. So I end up putting it in the fridge anyways, but this is just so much easier to store in the fridge than the cans are. This calls for 3 tablespoons per recipe of chipotle, so I'm gonna add, these are hefty tablespoons, so I might just add like 5 of them. We don't mind spice, we love spice, so if it's a little bit spicy with the chipotles, that is just fine. So those were like 5 heaping tablespoons. I think that will be good. Some of these ingredients, if you get familiar with canning, if you're not already familiar with canning, you'll realize that some of these ingredients are not super important for like the safety of the recipe. And actually in the book it says that the chipotle peppers are optional, so it doesn't really matter how much I add. 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, so we're gonna do 4. I'm so excited about this recipe. I think this is gonna be a new favorite potentially. 2 teaspoons of salt. I have some thyme. I do need to wash it and chop it. It calls for a teaspoon, so 2 teaspoons, so that won't be too much. I'm sure you could use dry thyme. It called for fresh thyme, so that's what I'm using today, just because I got a grocery delivery order, so I just went ahead and got it with all the other ingredients that I needed. So just remove the thyme from the stems. It would definitely be much easier to use dried thyme, because obviously pulling these little pieces off the stems are time consuming. I always try to make things the most efficient as possible when I'm cooking regardless, but especially when I'm doing canning recipes, because it can just take so much time. One recipe can honestly take like all day depending on how much you're doing, if you're pressure canning versus water bath canning. Thankfully, all of these recipes are water bath canned, so it'll take a little less time because of that. Pressure canning just takes a little bit longer, so that's good, but still time consuming nonetheless. We'll see how much of it I actually get done today. I'm definitely going to get this recipe done, obviously, because I'm in the process of making it right now. The unfortunate thing is that my peaches are already getting kind of soft. I've only had them for like 2 days now, but I don't know when they were picked. And for most recipes, you don't want to use very overripe fruit. Underripe is better than overripe, actually. So once your fruit starts getting soft, you don't really want to use it. So the sooner I can get these peaches canned, the better, just before they start going bad. Whenever I have some of these like herb packets, if I don't have fresh herbs from the garden, which I don't have any fresh thyme right now coming out of the garden, then I will, if I'm not going to use it all, I'll just put it in my broth bag that I have in the freezer for when I make veggie broth or bone broth or whatever, and just kind of boil it down with that. The last ingredient is the frozen corn. So that's probably about 3 1/3, and we're going to do that twice. So I usually end up washing a few extra jars than what it says, because I feel like I tend to make a little bit more than the recipe calls for every time. I don't know how it happens to work out that way. Even if I add the exact number of ingredients, it still ends up being a little bit extra. So I have some jars washed over here. I have 12 half-pint jars. It calls for 6 half-pints, so doubling it. But I'm probably going to take out another 2 or 3 half-pint jars and wash those up and have them ready. Just in case we have extra, I'd rather just go ahead and put them in jars than fill them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this on to boil and just do another check of my ingredients to make sure I have everything in there. So we've got the vinegar, lime juice, chipotle peppers, maple syrup, salt, chopped thyme, peaches, frozen corn, garlic, and red bell pepper. Great, so we're gonna bring this to a boil and then reduce the heat to medium-low, cook it for about 5 minutes, and then we're gonna put it in our jars. And this is a water bath canning recipe. Most recipes with vinegar, lemon juice, citric acid, lime juice, anything acidic is gonna be water bath canned. And like I said, I'm gonna put it in my digital electric pressure canner, my Presto. Process jars for 15 minutes, adjusting for altitude. I do live at altitude. I live at about 6,000 feet, 6,000 and something. So we're gonna add some extra time for that. I have my Presto quick start guide for pressure canning and water bath canning. It's just such an easy, quick resource, and I haven't canned in a while, so I need to refer back to this. So for boiling water canning, I thought that it told me on here how much time to add for altitude. I think for my area, it is, for my altitude, I have to add 15 minutes to each recipe. I'm just gonna double check that real quick. So yeah, for my altitude, 6,000 to 8,000 feet, I just have to add an extra 15 minutes to my canning time. So the recipe says to process for 15 minutes, adjusting for altitude. We'll add another 15 minutes for a total of 30, and then we'll take them out and do the next batch. I can only fit 10 of the half-pint jars in my canner at one time, so we'll see how many we end up having. And the great thing is that I don't have a minimum requirement of jars that I need to put in here. For pressure canning, I have a minimum of like 2 jars or something, but for water bath canning, there's not a minimum. I don't really like to just put 2 jars in there, so I'll probably do like half and half, or kind of 10 jars in one, 4 in the other. If I have like 14 jars, we'll see how many we end up having and then kind of go from there. So we've got our salsa all in here getting ready to boil. Once we see that it's boiling, we'll turn the heat down and just let it simmer for about 5 minutes. I've got all my jars in here to warm up before I put the salsa in them so that we can put hot food into hot jars. Our salsa is all done cooking and I just need to heat up our half pint jars. So in my electric pressure canner, it tells you to warm the jars first to put the hot food in the hot jars. If you put hot food in room temperature or cold jars even, your jars are at risk of breaking. So by putting hot food in hot jars, you minimize that risk substantially. So getting my canner ready and heating the jars up, that takes about 15 or 20 minutes. I usually do that while working on the food, but I kind of forgot to do that. And I was also chopping up some veggies for the next recipe. So that's okay. Our stuff is done. I'm just gonna leave it on the burner just to stay warm for a little bit. I have it off. And then as soon as those jars come out, we'll get those filled and back in the canner. I also just tried our salsa. I always like to try things, even though sometimes while you're canning stuff, the texture might change a little bit or the consistency of whatever it is. This might thicken up a little bit in the canner, but it's slightly liquidy with the lime juice and the vinegar and stuff. I just tried it and it is so, so good. It does definitely have a smoky flavor, I assume from the chipotle peppers. I didn't think about the chipotle peppers. I should have diced them up a little bit because they're in pieces, not necessarily like fine dices. I didn't think about that as I was getting them out of the jar, but that's okay. They're still pretty well dispersed throughout the salsa. It's so good. I think it's the perfect summer salsa. I thought that it said in the book what you could pair it with, but I think like pork chops, pork recipes, shrimp tacos. The other one that I'm gonna make, the fiery peach salsa, which I think will be pretty similar, just minus the corn. That one shows a picture of it on fish tacos, and that looks so good. So I think you could really put it with anything, even chicken dishes or just vegetarian dishes or just chips and salsa if you like a good corn and peach salsa. So I'm really excited about this one. I'm glad I made a double batch. I can't wait to put it in the canner and get it out and put it on the pantry shelf. And we'll be able to use this throughout, I'm hoping throughout the winter. I do try to eat seasonally. I really like summer dishes in the summer and winter dishes in the winter, fall dishes in the fall. I'm really big on that and buying ingredients that are in season if I don't grow them myself in my garden. I just feel like it makes me feel better as a person when I eat in season. But sometimes it's just nice to have sort of a refreshing dish in the winter time when you're usually eating crock pot recipes and soups and stews and other things. Even with a crock pot recipe, this would be a great salsa to add to some of those dishes too. So excited about it. It's been a while since I've canned anything at all. I think the last thing that I canned was some veggie broth. We did that together. I have a couple other videos on my channel. They were early videos. I think the first and second videos that I posted, a black bean soup and a sloppy joe sauce that I canned up. I did that in the winter time. So usually I'm canning mostly in the end of summer, early fall from like garden produce that we get. That's really like preservation time. And then when I can get like fresh fruit, fresh peaches, other fresh vegetables that I'm not able to grow from farmers markets or gardeners, I really like to preserve those things too. So I usually spend the end of summer, early fall doing a lot of canning recipes to kind of stock up for winter. Most of my canning time comes in the summer and early fall, and it is a busy season. Let me tell you, once the garden starts producing and I get a ton of stuff out of the garden to preserve, I have a ton of zucchini coming out right now. So that's like been the first thing I've been able to harvest really. But I'm getting several zucchini a day. So I plan to use those for fresh recipes and zucchini bread and some other things. But we might have enough where we need to can some of that too. So you might be seeing a few more canning recipes, canning videos coming up in the near future. And that's just because it is that season, preservation season. I love it. It's very busy. It's very time consuming. Canning is one of the most time consuming things that I feel like I do here in the kitchen, but it is so worth it in the end. The end result is always so worth it. And even though it takes all day to do one or two recipes, it's always so worth it. And it lasts for us, for two people, these things last on our pantry shelves throughout the year. So I still have quite a bit of stuff down there. A lot of things that I need to replace as well. So really excited to be adding some extra salsas and things because I'm getting pretty low on those down there. All right, our jars are done warming, so I'm gonna take them out and just sit them on my towel here, and then I'll bring you guys down so that we can fill them together. When I'm water bath canning, I just empty the water that was in the jars to help them warm up right into the pot, because I have to fill it with water anyways, an inch above the jars once I can them. So I just add this water to the pot so that I don't have to heat up additional water to add to it, and that works out really, really well. I ended up putting 10 full jars in here, like a full canner load. And we'll fill these and then see how much we have left afterwards. I don't mind just canning a few jars if I need to finish up a recipe. Ideally, I try to have full canner loads worth of food before I can anything, but you can't predict that necessarily with the recipes unless you know exactly how many jars it's gonna make. And like I said, for some reason, I always end up making more than what the recipe calls for, so whatever. All right, let's bring you guys down. I'm just gonna give it a good stir again, since it's just been sitting here for a few minutes. Just gonna go ahead and start filling these up. And we wanna keep about a 1/2 inch headspace, so we won't fill them up too much, so that there's room so that it doesn't siphon out of the jars while we're canning it. This one definitely has a little too much in it. It seems like, I'm gonna make a mess here, but it seems like a full spoonful, ladle full is about how much fits in the jars. That's another thing about canning, is you're absolutely gonna make a mess of your kitchen. Be prepared for that. And we can go through at the end before we clean up the jars and add more to these if we need to get the accurate amount of headspace, but I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of fill them for now, and then we'll go back around. This smells and looks so good, and I tried it and it is so good. It's just very summery, very refreshing. And yeah, I like the smoky flavor of it. I kind of wish I did have the malt vinegar to put in it. I think that would have just added to the flavor a lot. You can tell it's a little bit liquidy, but not too much. Like if you wanted to have it with chips and salsa, you absolutely could. Just gonna add a little extra to a couple of these. I don't want to put too much in. You don't want your jars to siphon and the liquid to kind of spill out as it's canning, because that'll affect the seal of your jars and just the quality of your product and many things. So you want to keep it a little bit on the lower side, if anything. So let's see. I'm going to take some out of a couple of these. I think that's probably pretty good. So I'm just gonna go through with I just use this little plastic knife and debubble, where you just go through with whatever you have, a knife or debubbler tool, and just kind of get all the bubbles out. So I usually just go around the edge and then kind of through the middle, because that will affect your headspace too if there's bubbles in your jar, and you just don't want air to be in your jar at all. So debubbling is always what you want to do before you put your lids on. The level of the food kind of drops a little bit when I do that, because there's obviously some little bubbles of air in there somewhere. So like I said, it'll definitely affect your headspace if you don't do that. That looks really good. So I have some clean lids here. I actually just need to wash them real quick. I have the regular mouth canning lids. I'm just gonna wash them and check them for any imperfections before we put them on here. Also, before we put them on, I'm just gonna take some vinegar on a towel and just wipe around the rims to make sure that it's clean from any residue that would cause the lids to not stick very well. And these jars are hot. I'm touching them and holding on to them, but kind of carefully because they are very, very hot from the hot water that they were warming up in and from the hot salsa. So you just want to be really careful when you're filling and cleaning the jars and putting the lids on, because you kind of have to hold it for that too. I can see there's a little bit of residue on here. If I were to leave that on, there's a huge possibility that my jars would not seal. And it's not the end of the world. If you notice it, you can just stick it in the fridge afterwards. But if you don't notice it and put it on the pantry shelf and it's not sealed very well, then you could have a bad product sitting there for quite a while before you notice it. All right, so we'll get our lids on. And then my bands, I usually just check these two to make sure that they are good, and you only want to put it fingertip tight, not too tight, because that will also cause your liquid to siphon out if the lids are too tight. This one has a little dent in it. I think it would be fine, but I'm just gonna not use it for now. Again, I just try to make sure that I am doing everything possible to ensure that I have the best product, the best jar coming out of the canner, because otherwise it's just kind of a waste of time. Something felt weird about this one. I think I'm gonna redo it, just clean it again and make sure there's nothing on it. And then I might even just use a different band too. There we go. It should go on pretty easily. And just make sure that they're kind of fingertip tight. Don't over tighten them. Just making sure none of them are loose. I'm just adding water so that there's water an inch above the jars for it to water bath can appropriately. So it's just going to heat first, and then it'll take 30 minutes to can, and then we'll let it cool for about 5 minutes and then take the jars out. Actually have much left. This is maybe a jar and a half full or so. So I think what I'm gonna do is actually just put this in probably a pint jar and just stick it in the fridge so that we can have it this week, and then just put the 10 jars on the shelf. So it said that it made 6 and I doubled it. So this probably is, like I said, about 1.5 to 2 extra half pints, and we have 10 in the canner right now. That was actually the perfect amount. I have a full pint jar here, so if I wanted to, I could have filled 2 half-pint jars, and that would have been probably the exact perfect amount. But like I said, I'm just going to put one of these reusable lids on there, and a plastic lid instead of a metal lid, and just stick it in the fridge, let it cool down for a minute, stick it in the fridge so that we have fresh salsa to eat over the next couple of days. It's so, so good. I'm so excited about it. If I did end up with the 2 extra half pints, I wouldn't necessarily have to run the canner just for those 2. What I probably would have done is just filled the jars and try to keep them warm. And then go ahead with my next recipe, the fiery peach salsa. And then if I have a few extra jars of that, or actually that recipe makes, I think, 7 jars. So I probably would have just added those 2 half pints in with that canner load. I just can it with that load because I'm pretty sure it requires the same time and everything for processing. So that's probably what I would have done. I wouldn't have run the pressure canner again, or the water bath canner again, for just 2 jars. I could have just added it to the next batch. So while this batch is canning, I'm gonna eat something. It is already 11:30. I started this at 9 o'clock this morning, just getting everything prepared, the kitchen ready, my jars ready, getting my ingredients out. So we're already 2.5 hours in, and we are just now getting to canning our first batch. It takes a little extra time with trying to film it and everything too, obviously, and kind of dealing with the cats and little interruptions here and there. Pro tip, if you're new to canning or haven't canned in a while or whatever, make sure that your dishwasher is empty before you start. I have washed things in between. Actually, I usually wash stuff in between because I'm using the same equipment for the most part. But there's nothing better than at the end of your canning day, having your dishwasher empty so that you can just throw all of your dirty dishes in there and not have to hand wash everything. I actually really like hand washing stuff. It's my preferred way to wash things. But after a really long day where you're just standing in the kitchen, canning and making salsas and other things, there's just nothing better than being able to just throw everything in the dishwasher. So make sure you empty your dishwasher before you get started. Okay, I have some more water boiling for our peaches so that we can pop them in and get them peeled very easily. I have my stock pot here. It's not on. I'm just going to go ahead and start adding some of the ingredients that I've already chopped up to it. So I have half a cup of diced red onion and a full cup of red bell pepper chopped up, just kind of finely diced. So I ordered grocery delivery. I do that often. It's my favorite thing to do. I really don't go to the grocery store very often unless I really have to in a pinch. So I ordered some groceries just for some ingredients that I knew I was going to need for this canning day last night, and it got delivered at 7:30 this morning. Unfortunately, the store was out of stock of jalapeno peppers, like fresh ones. This recipe calls for 2 jalapeno peppers. I don't have any fresh ones, and I don't have any coming out of my garden just yet. I'm just going to use some pickled ones, just a few. The recipe should be pretty spicy without it because it does call for a habanero pepper as well, and I do have one of those. But I really enjoy the flavor of jalapeno, so I'm just going to add a few pickled jarred jalapenos to it. And unfortunately, I don't have any downstairs in my basement, like home canned ones. Otherwise, I would use those. I have lots of banana peppers down there, but I don't have any jalapeno peppers. So I'm just going to use the ones from the store. It'll be fine. And just substitute those in for the fresh jalapeno. Another pro tip, make sure that you have just a trash bowl, a scrap bowl out. It makes your life so much easier so you don't have to run back and forth to the trash can or to the compost bin or whatever. I was thinking I was probably just going to trash these, but I really don't like to throw scraps away. I'm not going to put any of these in my broth bag because it's peaches and the peppers. I could, but I'm just not going to because it's in the bowl with the peaches. I think I'm actually just going to add it to my compost bin outside when I go back out because it'll decompose. Our compost bin is pretty full, but I think I need to add some more like green material to it, some organic material. So we're going to add these. And yeah, just have a scrap bowl so you don't have to keep running back and forth, and it'll make your life so much easier. Because I'm dealing with habanero especially and jalapeno peppers, my kitty is still like biting and putting fingers and things in his mouth. I don't have any gloves right now. We're out of stock, so I just need to get some more. I normally would put rubber gloves on before I chop up any really spicy peppers like that. So I am going to put them in my little Ninja sort of food processor here and just try to dice them up a little bit so I don't have to get really spicy stuff on my hands. All right, our canner is done. It's just doing the cool down phase, so I am gonna get ready to get it out. I love to just use a placemat, put a towel on top so that once you put your jars on there, it's super easy to move out of the way without disturbing your jars while they're cooling. Here's all 10 of our jars. You can hear them already starting to pop. They look so good. Okay, I'm gonna get back to this salsa, and then I need to wash some more jars, a few more jars, and get them warmed up this time while I'm making the salsa. Okay, I'm just adding 6 cups of peaches. I've already added 4, so this is about 2 more to my stock pot. I also have in here the red pepper, the red onion, the habanero. It's funny, the habanero looks like carrots, very deceiving because of its orange color. The jalapeno and the garlic. So I'm not doubling this recipe. This is just a single recipe, so we're adding a cup of sugar. A cup of apple cider vinegar. We've got the onion in there. We're gonna add half a cup of water. A 1/4 cup of lime juice. A 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Jalapenos and garlic, habanero, and then the cilantro, 1/4 cup, but it says to not do the cilantro until right before you put it in the jars. So let's bring this to a boil. I'm gonna go ahead and stir it up a little bit. It definitely smells spicier than the last one, I think because of the habanero for sure. So it says this one makes about 7 half-pint jars. We're just gonna let that come to a boil and do the exact same thing as the last one. We'll reduce the heat, let it cook on medium-low for 5 minutes, and then put it in our jars. This has to process for 10 minutes, adjusting for altitude, so I'll need to add 15 minutes for my altitude, to 25 minutes total, and we are good to go. So we'll just need to add the cilantro before we put it in the jars. We'll just add that to the pot. This salsa, it says it's delicious as a garnish on grilled salmon, and adds just the right amount of sweet heat to pork or seafood tacos. All right, I got our salsa boiled down. I'm gonna go ahead and just add our cilantro to it. So about a 1/4 cup of cilantro. Fun fact, I am one of those people that think cilantro tastes like soap. So I don't mind it so much if it's mixed in with something, but I don't really want it fresh on anything as like a topping. I think this will be fine. I won't taste it too much, I don't think. So it's just not my favorite herb out there for sure. This smells so good. It seems to be a lot more liquidy than the other salsa. I could probably kind of boil some of the liquid off for a few minutes. But I think that it'll probably thicken like most of my other recipes do in the jars. I think I'm actually gonna boil it for another few minutes and try to get some of this liquid off. It just seems like a lot. It's very liquidy. Okay, it still seems a little bit liquidy, but we're just gonna roll with it and see if it'll thicken up in the jars as it cans and then as it sits for a little bit on the shelf. I did 8 jars this time, so we'll see how many we need. Yeah, it's definitely more liquidy, which is not the worst, especially if I'm gonna add it to like a crock pot recipe rather than as a topping. But again, we'll see if it kind of thickens a little bit in the jars. I'm not really sure why it's so liquidy. Maybe the peaches. The peaches definitely could have added quite a bit of liquid too. Definitely smells very, very spicy. That actually ended up being the perfect amount. That was 8 jars. My headspace is a little bit more than half an inch. It's more like 1 inch. I think that's okay. I'm going to debubble these here and see where we're at. They look really pretty. They smell delicious. I am going to take a tiny little spoonful out of one of them and try it as well. It's definitely spicy. There is some heat to it, but I really like it. That is so good. I kind of wonder about the headspace if I need to try to fit it into 7 jars. The headspace seems a little bit low. I feel like it actually looks kind of liquidy in the picture, so I think we have the right consistency. Okay guys, I decided I'm actually going to do 2 more recipes. I just want to do all the peach recipes that I have in my book. I kind of want to get more peaches because there's a couple other recipes that I want to try, and I am not going to have enough peaches. A case of peaches is a lot, but it really doesn't go super far when you're canning up recipes. I mean, 4 canning recipes is actually a lot, so I'm pleased with that. Right now I'm going to go ahead and just can up 4 pint jars of just sliced peaches. I still have a few jars left in my basement, 2 or 3 jars. So I'm not going to do a ton of those, I don't think, unless I end up getting more peaches. I'm just going to start with the 4. And then there's another recipe that I want to try, which is like a hot peach-lime chutney. Kind of along the salsa lines, but a little bit different texture-wise. So we're going to do the sliced peaches first, and then I'll do the hot peach-lime chutney last. We're going to do a cup of honey to 4 cups of water for this recipe for our sliced peaches. You can use sugar, and there's a whole chart in the ball canning book of sweeteners if you want like a light syrup, a medium syrup, a heavy syrup, what to use for the sweeteners. I would rather use honey before using sugar if I have the option to. And so it's just 1 cup of honey to 4 cups of water. We're going to boil this down into a syrup, and that's what we're going to use for our sliced peaches. My Dutch oven is hot because I just boiled those peaches so that I could peel them. All right, I'm going to bring the honey and water mixture to a boil. In the meantime, I'm just going to get my peaches peeled and sliced up. I have our honey and water boiled down. I'm just waiting for our jars to finish warming. This one is not very time consuming to make as far as like putting it in the jars. It just takes a little bit longer to water bath can. It takes about 25 minutes, but with my altitude, I have to add 15 minutes. So this one is the longest one to actually can, 40 minutes total. I'm really impressed with how much we've gotten done today. It is 2:30 right now, and I'm just gonna get these sliced peaches in the canner and then do that last recipe, which I don't think will take very long, and that completes my entire case of peaches. Just gonna pack these in quick while our honey and water mixture is warm. I just kind of go about 3/4 of the way full with the peaches. You can do peach halves or you can do slices. I like the peach slices because if I'm putting it in a pie or something, I don't have to slice it up before I do that. I can just pour it straight from the jar. Or mix it in with like cornstarch or whatever to thicken it. We want to leave a 1/2 inch head space. So we'll have some extra room in here because I probably could have used a couple more peaches. But 10 is what the 4 pints called for, so that's why I picked that number. So it's okay if there's extra liquid, that's really no problem. Perfect. All right, these rims are definitely very sticky, so I definitely need to clean them off really well. I'm gonna get the very top where the lid goes and around the rim here so that everything seals good. This is a very sticky liquid, so you can do, like I said, medium or heavy syrup or whatever. We have peaches which are already sweet by themselves, so that's why I choose the light syrup. It called for light or medium, and the lighter the syrup, the better for me. I don't like exceptionally sweet things, so. Okay, here's our lids. Fingertip tight. If there's any sticky residue on the jars when I get them out, I usually just let them cool first, and then I just wipe everything down really good, wash it, because this is sticky. I can tell I'm gonna have to wash these before I put them in the pantry. I love this canner. I mean, similar to any other canner. I love that I can make small batch recipes, like just 4 at a time. And I like that the bulk canning book gives you the option, for the most part, to make small batch items. Okay, 40 minutes. It's gonna heat and then it'll process and these will be done. We probably could have done just 3 jars so that we don't have as much liquid in our peaches, but that's okay. It's still like half full, and these will settle too as they cool, so I'm not super worried about it. If I make some more, then I'll definitely be able to pack them a lot tighter than I did this time. I just wanted to save the rest of the peaches for one more recipe. Whew, guys, I'm glad I saved this recipe for last, the hot peach-lime chutney, because it says to, once you bring it to a boil, to simmer it for an hour until thick. I thought this was gonna be a quick one. But that makes sense. It's a chutney. I had to look up what a chutney was. I honestly didn't know. And it seems to be like a thicker consistency, sort of like a jam, but not quite. And also like what to use it for. I found that a lot of people use it on like charcuterie boards for cheese and crackers and things like that. And I think that would be delicious. Also just as a condiment for things. So I have all of my stuff measured out and diced up. So we're gonna go ahead and add that to our Dutch oven, bring it to a boil, and then we'll let it simmer for an hour. So I've got my 12 peaches here, all diced up pretty fine. I've got a cup of diced onion. I just used red onion because that's what I had left over from the other recipes, and I didn't wanna cut another onion. It probably would be better with a white onion or yellow onion, but I don't wanna cut another one, so. 3 cups of sugar. That's a lot of sugar. This is definitely probably going to be a sweeter condiment. I don't love making recipes that require a lot of sugar, but if it's a jam or something, you kind of just have to. 1 3/4 cups of white vinegar. A 1/4 cup of fresh lime juice. And I'm just gonna do an extra little dash because it calls for lime peels, and I don't have fresh lime, I just have the bottled lime juice, so I'm not gonna put lime peels in it. That's the only thing that I'm not including. That's obviously not like imperative to the safety of the recipe, so that's fine. So I just tossed in a little extra lime juice because of that. A teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of crushed red pepper. This is my half teaspoon measurement. I'm just using this because it's handy. For right now, a full teaspoon. And then crushed red pepper. I'm almost out of crushed red pepper. Okay, there's a teaspoon of that. And that's it. So this one didn't require a lot of ingredients. Let's get this stirred up. We're gonna bring it to a boil and then reduce heat and simmer uncovered 1 hour or until thick, stirring occasionally. So I am gonna eat my dinner because it's only 4:30, but I haven't really eaten today. So I'm gonna do that while this is cooking and go ahead and start cleaning up my kitchen as well. I'm so glad that I saved this for last without even really knowing that it was gonna take so long, because then I can just toss it into the canner later when it's ready to be jarred up and take it out, and it'll be like, you know, probably nighttime by then. But it's so great that I don't have to do the sliced peaches after that. I'm glad I went ahead and did those first. That way my kitchen can be pretty much clean and put back together by the time this is done. So that's great. I think this chutney is gonna take a while to thicken, but that's okay because, like I said, it's the last recipe of the day. I can just toss it into the canner as soon as it is thickened. I'd rather have a good, thick, quality product than rush it. Speaking of rushing it, you don't want to rush anything when you're canning, because when I was doing the peach slices, I realized after I put the canner on and got ready to start it that I did not pour water to cover the top an inch over the lids. So I had to go back and do that. Thankfully the water was just reheating at that time, so it wasn't a big deal. I didn't have to like start the process over or anything. And I caught it before I started actually canning it, so that's always ideal. But that just goes to show that's why you cannot rush things when it comes to canning, because you'll make a mistake, you'll miss a step. And there's nothing worse than getting to the end of your canning day or whatever you're doing recipe wise and realizing that you missed a step or did something wrong. And then you either have to redo it, recan it, or throw your product out if it's been a while. Yeah, you never want to make that mistake. I've been there, done it. It's not a fun time to have to recant things. So all of my recipes today that I used, so we're doing the hot peach-lime chutney now, the peach slices, let me give you the right terminology for all of them so you can find them in this book. The fiery peach salsa, that was the second one, and then the first one was right behind that, the summer corn and peach salsa. All of these recipes, I know it has taken me all day long. It's now 5 p.m. and it seems like a lot of work. They all have come out of this ball canning book that I showed you at the beginning, and they really are all beginner friendly. If you're new to canning, I highly recommend getting this book and just starting. I know it can seem really intimidating. I was very intimidated by peaches last year, and I don't even know why. I think it was the peeling part that seemed the most time consuming, but this was so much easier today. Just put them in a pot of boiling water first, very similar to how you do tomatoes. And the peels just literally slide right off. So that did not take a lot of time to do it that way. The most time consuming part is just chopping everything. And if you have a good food processor or a veggie chopper, then that will make your life a lot easier too. But like I said, it's so worth it at the end of the day. I can't wait to show you guys our final product when we're done tonight. I'm sitting here looking, and I'm trying to count the jars right now. We've got, I think, 16, 18, 20 jars in front of me, and then we still have these to go. So I told you guys that was 48 peaches in my case. It was actually 54. I forgot that I dehydrated some yesterday. So I forgot that I dehydrated these. This is 6 peaches that I tossed in my new Kasori dehydrator. If you didn't see the unboxing of that, I have that in the previous video. Go check it out. And these are great. They turned out just like chips, basically. They're pretty crunchy. Still slightly soft. I probably could have left them in the dehydrator for another hour or 2, but I was kind of over it. They were in for 10 hours. I think they could go like 12 to 18 hours. But they're still good, nonetheless. If you want them to be more like chip style, definitely leave them in for longer than you think. So that was 6 peaches there. And then we used 13 for the peach salsa, the fiery peach salsa, 13 for the corn and peach salsa, 10 peaches for the sliced peaches, and then this was 12 peaches for the hot lime chutney. So 54 peaches total in my case for $60. That comes out to about 90 cents per peach. You cannot beat that deal. I can't get that deal anywhere, especially not on like Colorado locally grown peaches. And even if I were to buy canned peaches, like I said, or some kind of product similar to these, some kind of peach salsa from the store, you're gonna pay at least $6, $8, $10 for a really good salsa, and depending on where you shop. And I just made 20, what's probably gonna be 25 or so jars of peach things, plus some dehydrated peaches, for $60. You can't beat that anywhere. I'm so excited. And even the other ingredients didn't cost that much. The cilantro, the frozen corn, the onion, I definitely already had that anyways. So there's just a few extra ingredients. The red pepper, that was probably just a few dollars in other ingredients for all of these canned items. So I'm so happy about it. Like I said, this is all beginner friendly. If you have been wanting to try canning and you're just intimidated by the process, just start, just look up some recipes, just start, get familiar with your equipment, whatever you have. I feel like this Presto canner is just the easiest way to get started and get really comfortable and familiar with the process and what you're doing. So highly recommend that as well. I can link that item in the description below. Also, I got mine from Amazon. They're a little bit pricey, but every pressure canner is pricey, and it has definitely paid for itself with everything that I've canned in the last couple of years. Alright guys, 2 hours later. It's pretty thick. There is still a little liquid, but I think if it's anything like I've canned before, some like preserves and things like that, it'll thicken up in the jar as it sits. So there's not too much liquid. I'm not worried about it. I think it's gonna continue to thicken. I'm gonna actually let it cool for just a second and try it on like a cracker or something. It smells so good. This entire time it's been cooking, it smells absolutely delicious. It definitely looks like a chutney consistency. So I'm excited to try it. Let's give it a shot. It's definitely getting late and I'm ready to get this stuff canned up. Oh yeah, even just putting it in a bowl, there was like some liquid, but then once I kind of mix it around, it actually thickened up pretty well. So let's see how it tastes. It's probably boiling hot still. This would be so good on a charcuterie. It's like the perfect level of sweet. A little bit tart. You can definitely taste the peach. It would go perfect with cheese, crackers, olives, salami, all the things for a charcuterie. This was worth letting it sit and simmer for 2 hours, I think. I love it. Absolutely delicious. My jars have been warm for a while now because I didn't expect it to take quite that long. I had a feeling it was going to take longer than an hour, but that's okay. I put 6 jars in here. It says 4 half pints, but I did 6 because I really didn't know how many it would make. And the canning time is actually quick. It's only 25 minutes. It's actually, the recipe calls for 10 minutes if you live at sea level, but just with my altitude, it'll take 25 for me. So that's good that that part doesn't take long at all. Okay. It's definitely sticky with all that sugar. And I think we're leaving a 1/2 inch headspace. Let me look and see. Yep, 1/2 inch headspace. I'm so excited about these. I almost want to make more of this as well. That seemed actually pretty close to perfect. I'm just gonna debubble and adjust my headspace real quick. And then the rest will probably just go in a jar and go in the fridge. And we'll eat it this week. That was actually the perfect amount. 4 jars was definitely accurate. So we've got our 4 jars full and then nothing left. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Let me know in the comments below, what are your favorite peach canning recipes? And if you have any recommendations that I could try, maybe in our next video. Also, make sure to like this video and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.